you, Madam Speaker. Today, Madam Speaker, we're here to talk about food price and food price volatility. And, Madam Speaker, it's no secret that the cost of food has risen dramatically. We're seeing record numbers of people visiting food banks in this country. In fact, in Ontario, 1 million people used a food bank last year. Food bank use since 2019 has gone up 135%. This has never happened in my lifetime, Madam Speaker. And over the past 3 years, we've seen rent and groceries are up 40%. Canadians are spending 43% of their income on tax. That's more than housing, food, and clothing combined. Now, it's easy to look at food prices in the grocery store and blame the big grocers on the high cost of food, but blaming them doesn't actually get to the root cause of the problem and why food has become so expensive. The bottom line is, Madam Speaker, that the NDP Liberal government's policies and regulations are what's driving up the cost of food and the cost for farmers to produce food in this country. Madam Speaker, you've heard this time and time again, and I'm not afraid to say it again, and I'll say it as many times as I need to. Conservatives will axe the tax. But in the meantime, we need to pass Bill C-234 unamended and give farmers a reprieve from the carbon tax. Now, let me give you an idea of why the carbon tax impacts the cost of food so much. Now, if you look at the supply chain from start to finish, every single step along that supply chain is facing increased costs, and it can be related directly back to the carbon tax. And sometimes they're paying multiple times in carbon tax. So if we look at, for instance, on a farm, you have to pay for the fertilizer, and we're getting taxed right now on fertilizer. Well, how does the fertilizer get from the fertilizer company to the field? It's trucked, Madam Speaker. We use trucks for everything in this country in order to get things from wherever it needs to be, from the farm or back to the field, or from the field back to the farm. And when you increase the cost of fuel for these trucks, which are not exempt from the carbon tax or from any fuel taxes for that matter, it's absolutely going to increase the cost of the production. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say I don't believe everything that the Liberals tell you or what you hear that farmers are exempt from taxes on their farm fuel, because there is a slight bit of truth to that. But for the most part, Madam Speaker, in modern farms today, we are not using equipment, just tractors on the farms anymore. Tractors, yes, they're exempt. Any equipment that doesn't use a roadway is exempt. But I can tell you from experience on my own farm, Madam Speaker, that we used transport trucks to get the potatoes, in my instance, from the farm, from the field, back to the farm, to the packing house. And if you look at the prairies, they have to truck the grain from the field back to the farm to put it in the bins for storage. And what is the most economical way to get product from the field back to the farm for storage? It's using big transport trucks and taking less loads from the field back to the farm. It saves on fuel, number one, it saves on costs, but when those trucks are not exempt from the carbon tax, or any taxes for that matter, it increases the cost of doing business for farmers. And what is the end result of that? Well, farmers can't eat up all those costs. It comes off their bottom line. It comes off of what they would have as extra income to invest back in their farming operations. And of course, it's going to get passed on to the next part in the chain. And whether that's direct to the consumer or direct to a wholesaler, in my instance, I have to increase my costs because my costs have gone up. I have to recoup those costs. I can't afford to eat them. And at the end of the day, consumers and Canadians at the grocery store are going to pay more for that because of the carbon tax, Madam Speaker. And one thing, if folks are out there watching and you're from a city and you might not know where your food comes from, let me tell you, out on the prairies, the fields can be tens of 20, 50, 80 kilometers away. And in my farm's instance, some of our farms were 80 to 100 kilometers away from the home farm. And we had no choice but to truck the goods from those fields back to the farm. And even if a farm is 10 kilometers away from the home farm, they're going to If you go 10 times a day back and forth, that's 100 kilometers driven. So imagine how much fuel is being consumed on just transporting food from point A to point B at the farm gate. And we're not talking beyond the farm gate here, Madam Speaker. So the cost of that carbon tax on truckers is immense, and it's immense on the farmers. So if you tax the farmer who's growing the food, and then you're going to tax the trucker who ships the food, Canadians are the ones who are going to pay more for the food. It's common sense, Madam Speaker.